Hi, everyone. Teresa Aker here from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. It's my privilege today to introduce you to Jeffrey Thurman. How you doing, Jeff?
Doing great. Thank you, Teresa.
My pleasure. I'm glad to have you here today. So I want to just quickly just say a couple of things about you, Jeff, and then I'm going to come back to you, okay? So Jeffrey, he was retired at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, and studied journalism and mass comm at the University of Iowa. So, Jeffrey, I know you're going into acting now, so let's go from where you were, and I want to thank you for your service, first of all,
Thank you.
most important. So
Mhm.
let's start with where you were up till now. How's that?
Sure.
So how
Uh,
did this all get started in acting?
well, I grew up in a small town in Wisconsin, about halfway between Green Bay and Milwaukee. And at a very early age, I developed kind of a twin passion. I loved writing and I loved acting. I was an avid reader as a little one. And in high school, I started acting, got involved in high school uh, drama, and also started working at the local community theater. And I have to say, the acting bug hit pretty hard. And when the time came to go to college, I initially started college as a theater major, although I realized pretty quick in hanging out with other theater people and particularly getting to know some instructors, professors that I really respected, that most people were starving to death. So I decided I needed to have a plan B, and I changed my major to journalism. And actually, that worked out pretty well, anyways, because I attended college on an Army ROTC scholarship, so I had a guaranteed job.
That's fantastic. And when so now you're doing all of this. Did you do acting while you were there? Because it says also you were with the FBI. So tell us a little bit about that, just because I think people will probably be intrigued by that and how you incorporated your acting into that.
Well, working as an investigator, you always have to have a certain level of acting skills because you have to, in some ways you could say you put on your investigator's face or your game face. You're sometimes dealing with pretty despicable people.
Oh, I
Uh,
bet.
I mean, I worked fugitives for a number of years. I was a founding member of the Fugitive Task Force here in San Diego, and
Oh,
we're arresting child molesters, and
oh.
kidnappers, and folks like that. And to get them to talk to you, you can't tell them what you really think of them. You have to present more of an empathetic front to them. So it does require acting skills.
A lot of acting skills. Now, you mentioned so you like writing and you're acting. So are you able to use those tools obviously for your writing or?
Yes, I mean, first of all, the part they never show you on TV or in the movies is that law enforcement requires an unbelievable amount of paperwork. So,
Oh,
so
okay.
you do a lot of writing, although it's a far cry from fiction writing. Uh, but it was always something that was in the back of my head that when I got the opportunity, I wanted to become a writer off and on throughout the years, even while I was an agent. When the schedule would allow, I would get involved in a local community theater production here and there.
Okay.
And so I've always managed to keep a toe in those pools.
Wonderful. Now, what kind of writing do you do? Tell us about that.
Uh, well, I finally got it in gear about 20 some years ago.
Okay.
And I met some friends who were writers, and they invited me into a workshop group they had. And that forced me to finally start writing. And the first thing I wrote was a stage play, in part because that's what I had my most experience at that point was doing acting in theater. So I
Okay.
wrote a stage play, finished that, discovered that unless you're already known as as a playwright or you're involved in some type of academic program, it's next to impossible to get a play produced. Although I did have it up and running for a weekend. I then
Oh,
adapted it into a screenplay, and so that consumed a good chunk of time. At one point, I decided that maybe what I need to do is write a book of poetry. Then I'll have completed the trifecta of the three least publishable things you can do.
oh my goodness.
But I decided it was time to stop being a one-trick pony and try and branch out a little more. So I started my first attempt at in prose and wrote and completed my first novel, which is a science fiction time travel book.
Oh, so the novel's done and it's up?
Well, it's done to the point where I have a literary agent who is my ride or die, and she is currently trying to sell the book.
Oh, fantastic. And I'm happy to put this in the show notes.
Yeah.
What's the title of the book?
Well, the working title right now is A Time for Eagles. Uh,
Can you say that again?
a Time for Eagles.
A Time for Eagles. Okay.
Yes. Yeah,
Can you
I
tell us a
describe it.
little bit of what it's about?
Yeah. Well, the elevator pitch line I use is it's a boy, a girl, airplanes, World War II, and time travel.
Oh, I love it
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, it's essentially it's a story of a young man from the 21st century who's mad at the world. His parents have died in an accident, and he feels like his life is already over before it started. And he comes across a old photo of a pretty girl, and on the back of it is a message addressed to him by name, saying, "Come find me." In the book, he then goes through a series of increasingly unusual events, which ends up with him being dumped into 1940, where he discovers that the photo was taken in London. So his mission in life is now to get to London, which is next to impossible for a young man in America in 1940 because of the war. However, he has a unique set of skills. He's an avid gamer. His forte is aviation combat simulation games, and so he's essentially a person who is a demon in the air, though although he's never actually flown a real plane, he doesn't know how to take off or land. However, the Royal Air Force in England at that time is in desperate need of pilots, and he fits the bill.
Oh my, I'm loving this
Yeah,
already. We
and
have to read that one.
yeah. I mean, the reality behind it is this is a little known corner of history that a lot of people don't know about. But uh, prior to the United States entering World War II, the Royal Air Force actually had three entire squadrons made up of American pilots,
Oh no, I didn't know that
flying
either.
fighters. Before we got into the war, it was the British equivalent of the Flying Tigers.
Oh, I did not know that either. I've learned something new today.
And it was a real cast of characters. They were basically the cast-offs and the rejects who couldn't get a job in the naval aviation or in the Army Air Force.
Oh my goodness. And so they got so they just could apply and get in there.
Yes. And without getting too deep into the weeds, in the fall of 1940, as the Battle of Britain was ending, Britain was desperately in need of pilots. They had more aircraft than they had pilots, and they were getting pilots from everywhere they could find them. So you had them coming throughout the empire. You had pilots coming from Canada and South Africa, and they even had
Oh,
they were the first integrated air force in that they had black pilots from the West Indies, from the Caribbean, and they had a huge contingent of American pilots.
oh my good. Am I correct to say you were a pilot as well?
I flew helicopters for the Army for my last 4 years in the service.
How exciting. Honestly, how exciting. That's just
Oh, it beats anything at Six Flags.
I bet. I
Yeah,
would love listen, I know some pilots. I think that's an amazing background that any of you can have. That's just exciting as heck to me. So, absolutely. So now you're acting. So as you're acting, now you've got all this toolbox of all these different things that you've done. Tell us about some of your acting that you've done.
well, I've done a lot of theater, and I've done everything from Neil Simon to Shakespeare over the years. Off and on, I've been able to dip my toe into some of the camera work. Many years ago, I'd become friends with a talent agent. It's kind of a favor to me. She threw me the opportunity to do a TV commercial. And
Oh,
as an avid fan of Abbott and Costello and the Three Stooges, I was absolutely thrilled because it was a healthcare commercial. And my role in the commercial was to play a dad at a picnic and then accidentally set myself on fire
oh,
and jump into a pool.
oh my goodness.
And I got to do my own stunts, which was fun too.
Oh yeah. So can we see that anywhere or is that long done now?
Uh, that's that's about 30 years ago. So
Yeah, that's what I thought.
it, I have a very grainy copy of it, but I've never been able to find it myself on YouTube.
I get
Uh,
that.
yeah.
So
uh,
what are you doing today? Let's talk about your current projects.
okay. The most recent thing that I've done was I just finished filming some scenes for an independent film production with a Las Vegas-based group, and the movie's called Desert Fiends 2. They describe it as a horror comedy, very over the top. If you're a horror movie fan, it's a very wet movie. It's
I
very
had the
splattery.
pleasure of meeting Nicole Vegas and Lucia. I had a few on my show and from Desert Fiends. Absolutely. Great job you
Yeah,
guys all did. So continue on
yeah,
that.
yeah. And Nicole is an absolute sweetheart, and
She's
she's like
great.
one of my new best friends. And I had actually gone to Las Vegas to do research for a book project. I've got a haunting book, a ghost story that I'm working on currently, and part of it's going to be set in Las Vegas. And I combined it with my other passion, which is I'm a monster kid, and I attended a horror convention. And I
Oh,
ran into Nicole and the production team behind Desert Fiends at the horror convention and got to know them and hung out with them over the course of the weekend. And I mentioned to Nicole and her husband that one of my bucket list items is I've always wanted to get killed in a movie. It's kind of silly. My wife always looks at me with a raised eyebrow and kind of says, "Okay, whatever makes you happy." Uh, and after I had come back home from the convention, I was contacted by Nicole, and she said, "I think we can make that dream come true."
oh, that's
And
fantastic.
And so I went out in April and I joined the team and uh, spent a fun-filled 4 days out there filming and had the time of my life.
Oh, that's wonderful. I've met a few of the people there. Oh, just amazing group of your community is so tight and so supportive of each other. Well, I have seen other communities like that, but you really truly have a great bond, all of you, don't you?
Yes, acting. Most of my experience, again, is live theater, and that's always tends to be a very close group because you're thrown into uh, this concentrated environment, for several weeks or several months in many cases, and it sort of becomes essentially a family. And uh, Desert Fiends, we were filming at a ghost town out in the middle of the desert, and earlier in my life, I was a summer camp counselor, and this was really the sort of a fusion of community theater and summer camp is what it felt like working out in the desert, and it was a marvelous group of people, and I had a lot of fun, and for somebody who's been a lifelong movie fan, it was really fascinating to me to get that kind of in-depth opportunity to see what goes on behind the scenes and how the sausage is made in this case. Really
Oh,
enjoyed it.
oh, that's excellent. And you would get to see that. What I would think is as well, we talked about you need more than one thing to be able to do. So now these smaller films, although it's a big film, I mean, you guys did great. You get to see each part of that, the camera work, the editing, the actors themselves, all of those things. You get to see how it all works. So that's great. And I honestly believe Nicole actually, as I said before, she actually said you need to have more than one thing, and that's exactly what you said. So what else are you working on right now, Jeffrey?
Um, I'm currently in between things now as far as acting goes, and I'm back going full bore on my writing projects right now. Like I said, I've got the finishing touches done on my time travel story. My agent actually is in New York this week, going to the publishers, not just for me, for all of her writers, but she's actually having sit down meetings. So I will probably have a cramp by the end of the week from keeping my fingers crossed that we get some good news. Uh, as with acting, writing is a very lonely profession in a lot of ways,
I bet.
and and you really have to continually feed your self-esteem because there's so much disappointment that goes with it. I have a writer friend who had told me that uh, of everybody who thinks of writing a book, only 1 out of 100 actually sits down and starts writing a book. And out
It's
of those,
difficult,
yeah,
Jeffrey.
oh, it is. And out of everybody who starts writing a book, only one out of those 100 actually finish the book.
Now, what about, can I ask you about this self-publishing? You see a lot of people that are self-publishing, doing that sort of thing. Has that made it easier for you, or do you think it's just as competitive?
It does and it doesn't. The good news is anybody can publish a book. The
That's what
bad
I'm
news
hearing.
is anybody can publish a book, and and it shows when you read things.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff. It's like, whoa, wow. I mean, I've bought things and kind of gone, God love you. You took a swing and you hit it. Might have been a foul ball, but I give them credit for trying. Uh, but there are some amazing success stories that come out of the self-publishing world too. Andy Weir in The Martian couldn't get anybody to touch him until his book was a bestseller as self-published, and then then he was picked up.
You hear that a
Several.
lot, even in the music industry too, don't you?
Yeah. Um, the guy who wrote, his name escapes me right now, but the guy who wrote the script for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid had a famous line about the film industry, and they says that nobody knows nothing.
Oh, I
And
like that.
and I think it's really true. It's hard to gauge what's going to be a success and what's not.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, J.K. Rawlings, if I, and please, I won't have this 100% correct, but as I understood it, she was rejected quite a bit before her beautiful novel became a huge success. But she said a lot of publishers wouldn't even look at it.
everybody in England turned her down.
I
In fact,
heard
it's funny.
that.
I have a good writer friend was telling me he was at a convention over in England, and there's a second convention after the first convention every day, and for writers, and that's at the bar, and and he
I
said
like that.
he was at the bar speaking with an editor at one of the major English publishing houses, and after a couple of drinks, the guy confided to him that uh, he was the editor at his house that turned down Rowling's Harry Potter book.
Oh, can you imagine?
He says, "Yeah."
Oh,
He says, "It's not." He says, "It's not what you lead with in a job interview."
no, I bet. But it would be awful. You would just kick yourself. It's like, you could have bought those stocks or held on to those stocks that became billionaires, right? So,
Well,
I mean, it's the
exactly,
same thing,
exactly.
right? And I imagine it was the same for actors and films and writing, all of them. I'm sure that people were turned down and rejected, and then all of a sudden they're superstars. So, I mean, you're right. There's two sides to the coin. There's ones that made it and really you wonder how they make it, and other ones that should have made it didn't, right?
It's luck and timing and perseverance, really. When I was taking acting classes at the University of Iowa, one of my instructors made the comment that uh, her experience was that the folks that had all the leading roles in high school and college weren't the ones that succeeded in the
I've heard
business because they weren't used to being rejected.
that's a big factor, isn't it? And I think people and not negating people who came from privileged lives, but if you have too many things, you just aren't driven the same. Now, that's a general statement, but I would
Yeah,
think when you have to strive for something and work really hard for things and you're already starting without all that financial backing, you really are basing your whole life on your talent. You have to keep working and keep building. And I think that's a big factor in successes.
very much so. I mean, I'm kind of a late bloomer at the writing game, which is
Sure.
kind of funny and kind of sad at the same time. I in the back of my head, I've been wanting to write ever since I was like fourth or fifth grade. I've still got snippets of stories and things that I wrote back then, but I had a long period where I was my own worst enemy. I
Okay.
would, I was one of those ones who always let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and that I would start writing and I would go, "This isn't good," and I would stop. I don't know how many times I would get a paragraph in or even a whole page in and go, "Well, no, this is crap," and I would stop myself, not realizing that that's what everybody goes through, and that and the key is to not stop, but keep pushing on through, and that most writers will tell you that success doesn't come in the first draft; it comes in your revisions, it comes in the rewrites that you do. But I let that stop me for so many years, and finally was able to push through. And I still struggle with that almost every day. I've got this little editor voice in my head going, "Nope, nope, that's a piece of crap. Stop right there." And so my writing process is painfully slow, and I'm working on trying to speed it up. But it's a continual struggle. But you have to keep pushing through. You can't give up on yourself.
I think it's probably self-criticism. We all do it. And there might be a bit of imposter syndrome in behind that. Are you sure you can do this? You kind of get all of that. And when you get too much self-doubt, I think a lot of writers would go through that. And then you just have to step back and say, give it a week. Give it a week or two and then come back and read what you've written and see, because now you're not so critical, right? Or are you critical no matter what?
Oh, through the whole process, and
Oh,
and
okay.
the most terrifying thing is showing it to other people. I think the scariest thing uh, I ever did was send the book out. You
Oh,
know,
I
to
bet.
when I met my agent through a writers conference, and I tell people that are not real big fans of trying to go, go in cold and writing a query letter, a pitch letter to try and get somebody to look at their stuff, that a writers conference where you have the opportunity to actually meet with editors and writers is a good way to go. And that's where I found my agent. And when she asked me to send her the book, I had that little flash of icy fear go racing up my spine. And I think the best way to describe it is it's sort of like it's the first day of school and you're about to send your child off to kindergarten. And you put them on the bus and they look all happy and they've got their new lunchbox and they've got a trapper keeper and they've got their little bag, book bag, and they're wearing brand new clothes, and you send them off and you don't know what kind of shape they're going to come in when they come home. Are they going to come through the door at home and say, Daddy, I had the best day ever. I have a new best friend. I love my teacher. Are they going to walk in missing a shoe with a bloody nose and their backpack is all ripped up and they're going to go, school sucks?
I hate school. Oh, that's a great analogy.
And sending your book out into the world is so terrifying because you don't know what's going to happen to it.
But you've done great. And now, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Um, oh, I don't know, accepting my award at the Oscars.
We'll be looking for you at the Oscars. I'll be watching you, saying, "I know,
uh,
Jeffrey."
yeah. Uh, my fantasy in 5 years would be that I've got two books published, and I'm working on a third and a fourth book, uh, and my ultimate fantasy would be to see my first book, which is my first love. I'll have to admit, my time travel book, getting ready to go on the big screen. I would love that. I've
I,
told my wife that if I get Hollywood money for that book, I says, by God, we're going to have one hell of a trip to London.
I'm so pulling for you. I think that would just be
Thank you.
fantastic. So, Jeffrey, I have another question for you.
Sure.
Would you come back and do another episode as we go when you're launching all of this and you get to the next phase? Would you mind coming back?
I would love to, Teresa. Thank you.
It was truly my pleasure
Yeah.
today to talk to you. Now, what's the best place someone can reach out to get to you, Jeffrey, so that if they have questions or they want to purchase anything or just ask you questions, what's the best place?
Well, I'm kind of a technological philistine, so I'm still trying to get a website off the ground. However, I do have a Facebook page,
Okay, good.
Jeffrey Thurman Writes.
Perfect. I'll make sure that's in the show notes so everyone can reach out
Mhm.
to you. Jeffrey, thank you again for today.
Oh, thank you, Teresa.
My pleasure. To everyone, this is Jeffrey Thurman. You want to take a look at his Facebook page. I'll make sure everything that we talked about today in the show notes that you can go ahead and take a look. And from then on, we'll have you back on another episode. Okay, Jeffrey? To everyone else, this is Teresa Aker from Success Diaries with Teresa Aker. Do subscribe to my channel. I hope you're having a great day, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Bye-bye now.